Hi everyone, this is Mrs. Parr, and on this episode of Math Up to Par, we are going to be talking about representing decimals. So decimals are parts of a whole. They represent values that are smaller than 1. So you have seen these base 10 blocks before when you've been working with whole numbers. Typically we said that this was 1, this is 10, this is 100, and this is 1,000. Well, today we are going to change which one is equal to one whole. So instead of saying this little piece is one whole, I am now telling you that this block is one whole, okay? Mind blown. So this block, this cube right here, that used to be worth 1,000, has 1,000 pieces in it, is now going to be one whole, okay? So how many whole numbers are there right here? There are 1, 2. So this represents 2, right? There are 1, 2, 3 of these flat pieces right here. Well, I could fit 10 of these flat pieces inside of here. So this is 10 times smaller than the place here. So this actually represents my tenths place. There are 6 of these rods right here. I could fit 100 of these rods in this cube. So that means that these represent my hundredths. And I have 5 of these cubes right here, and I could fit 1,000 of these units inside of this cube, which makes this my thousandths place. So this number represents 2 and 365 thousandths, okay? 2 and 365 thousandths, because we've changed what the whole is equal to. Okay, I could change the whole and make this equal one whole or this equal one whole. So make sure you know what the whole is before you define what each piece represents. Because with our base 10 system, every time you go a place to the left, it gets 10 times bigger. Every time you go to a place to the right, it gets 10 times smaller, because that's how our base 10 system works in math. So we can also use these grids to represent amounts smaller than one whole. So this box right here, this square, is equal to one whole if it was filled all the way in. Well, there's only part of it that is shaded, so these are pieces of a whole. I know that these hundreds grids are 10 across and 10 down. So instead of counting each little box, I'm going to count I'm going to count columns. So I'm going to count 10, 20, 30, and this one has one less than 10. So this would be 9 more. So this is going to be 39. 39 out of 100 as a fraction would look like this. Out of 100 pieces, that means there are 39 hundredths colored in. So as a decimal, I would write 39 hundredths like this in decimal form. This grid, I'm going to count 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. Then I'm going to count 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76. So there are 76 out of 100 pieces right here. That's in fraction form, which means there are 76 hundredths. So in decimal form, if this square represents one whole, then there are 76 hundredths shaded in on this grid. If I look at this one, I see 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. So that would be the same as 90 hundredths. So if I wrote it in decimal form, I could write it like this to represent 90 hundredths. But here's the thing about decimals. You do not have to write zeros after that last decimal place because it will not change the value. So this is equal to 90 hundredths. Well, 90 hundredths is equal to 9 tenths because if I were to lay over a rod on top, there would be 9 of these 10 rods on top. So to simplify our decimals, we take the zeros off the end. Both this number and this number are correct, but they are equivalent, which means they are equal to each other, so they show the same value. So when we put decimals in simplest form, we take zeros off the end of those numbers. All right, so here we have tenths grids. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So as a fraction, it would look like 6 tenths. And as a decimal, it's also pronounced 6 tenths, but it would be written like that with a 6 in the tenths place. And that 0 is a good placeholder in my ones place so that I can see my decimal point more easily. Over here, we have 2 bars shaded in out of 10. So I have 2 tenths, which can also be written as a decimal with a 2 in the tenths place. So other than our base 10 blocks, our tenths and hundredths grids, you might see different shapes and different models. And you see those and you think automatically of fractions. When you see a circle with pieces, typically my mind goes to fractions, but fractions and decimals are a way to represent amounts smaller than 1. So when we can write something in fraction form, we can also write it in decimal form. So there are 10 total pieces in this one. So there are 3 out of 10 shaded, so that would be 3 tenths as a fraction, and 3 tenths as a decimal would look like that, with a 3 in the tenths place. Over here, I have 1 tenth, which would be represented in decimal form with a 1 in the tenths place. And then over here, I have 5 across the top, 6, 7, so I have 7 tenths here, which I can also represent in decimal form with a 7 in the tenths place. All right, everyone, be sure to check out my other videos on decimals, and thanks so much for listening and happy practicing.